Dr. Carl Hart, Drug Use for Grown-Ups is the book. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, it's great to see you, Karen. You're my favorite radio host, favorite
No,
personality, everything.
Okay, I appreciate that, but we don't need to qualify. I could be one of, because people don't. I don't want nobody feelings to be hurt by me being your favorite. But thank you. All right, so we were talking about Naomi Osaka and a host of other things in the first hour, and I was just curious because I was sharing an experience of self-awareness, of understanding that perhaps one of the reasons why I was hired was because my employers didn't really see me. They saw a trope, or they saw, a stereotype that they were comfortable with. And I'm in academia as well as you are. And I know that there's a certain way that you should move to get tenure, to get, like there's a certain Black comfort zone for white folk because it's a heavily white space, academia, heavily white. And you're at an Ivy League school, right?
Yes.
Do you, and I'm asking a delicate question. Do you believe the way that you show up in the world made it easier for them to put you in the position that you're in?
No, actually, it kind of made it more difficult at some level because, I've been doing what I'm doing. Well, I've been at Columbia for about 23 years now, but I've been in academia since 1989, 1990 in these spaces. And over the course of that time, in 95 or so, I decided to grow dreadlocks, and I always had gold teeth. It's a Miami thing, it's a hood thing, and I just didn't want people to get it twisted and not remember where I was from, so that made it difficult for some people. And also—
Wait, pause. Did you have tenure at the time that you grew your locks and had gold teeth?
No. I didn't have tenure. I was a graduate student, postdoc, and young faculty person, and it was along the path. But the thing about it was, I wanted to make sure that I did not forget who I am and the struggle that the people engaged in so I could be where I am. And so I began to learn how to think when I discovered the sort of philosophy of Rastafarianism. And so, I'm raised in the Black church with Christians and so forth, but it was always a conflict when I saw the white Jesus and that sort of thing, but I just didn't have the language to articulate it. And then the brothers in Jamaica were talking about Haile Selassie and him being the second coming and those sorts of things. And it fit with the whole Christian narrative. So it was easy for me to hold on to. But I have to be clear that, I no longer subscribe to any sort of religious sort of doctrine at this moment, but it taught me how to question, and Rastafarianism that is, taught me how to question and how to think. And so my dreadlocks are an expression of that time. And so I don't forget, my children have dreadlocks. They've never had haircuts. So those kind of things just remind me of the world that we continue to have to negotiate. And that's no disrespect to anybody else in the world. It's just a reminder for me. And so when I see people who are catching hell who look like me, I have to remember I have an obligation to them, and we as a society have an obligation to them. And that's what this is about.
All right. Tanya, go ahead, Tanya. Tanya, I know you were.
Well, what I don't know about you, Karen, I heard you saying you are just no drugs. Does that mean you've never done any entheogens, or you don't have a medicine practice?
No, never. I mean, of course, I've had a colonoscopy, and that propofol is amazing. So let me just say that out loud. And I actually scheduled 2 within a year. I was like, I see how you can get caught up. That was absolutely the best sleep I've ever had. And I understand that it's an artificial good sleep, but it is a good sleep. But
Karen, can I interrupt 1 second? So
sure.
In my book, I describe having a colonoscopy, and I talk about propanol in the book. So you should check out that section, because okay. I think you'll be feeling it.
All right. I appreciate you directing me in my reading habits, because I do need direction. I appreciate that, Dr. Hart. That said, I know that I'm a type, not just type A, but I have a very not addictive personality, but I know that potentially if I'm in, I'm all in. So like if I use drugs, I'm going to use all of the drugs, and I'm going to use them all the time. Like when you describe eating a whole bag of cashews, that's me. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to eat all of it. So so I have to constantly, measure myself against what I know my proclivities are, and deny myself things so that I don't fall off, into the abyss.
I'm with you. When I was in elementary school, I recognized that I had an addictive personality. And so I did not smoke, I did not drink, I did not do drugs. I just was like, you don't do anything easy. So I'm addicted to sugar and I overeat it to a fault. But in 2018, someone I respected greatly wanted me to do some work for them. And they had created this work on a plant medicine called Kanna. And it is a testament to my respect for this person, because my fear was I would either die if I did this medicine, or I would lose my mind and I wouldn't even know that I lost it. But I was willing to risk that because I respected this person so much. And so I've always had a connection with trees. I have tree families all over the world. So we went to their estate and we made a ritual. We set intentions, we fasted before, and I took this medicine called Kanna. And the clarity was so profound that I was like, of course plants are teachers. How have I lived this long and denied myself this? I had never been on their property before. I went walking through their 35 acres and found my tree family. I'm sitting there with the trees. I feel some stuff coming up. There's a dog there that I'd never met that had been abused. This dog starts humping me for 4 hours. I felt some demons coming. The dog started barking at something that it was feeling. The medicine told me that the two people I was with were not at my level, could not handle me. I began telling them things about themselves that they are now living out in the world. And me and that person, we stopped it ended for us because of what I saw in them, but it sent me on my journey to find many more plant medicines. And I've taken my children with me to journey, because that's what, people in the movement journeying. So one day I hope you'll come with me and journey.
No. I absolutely will not go with you to journey with the trees and the plants. I'm not doing it. All right, but Dr. Carl Hart is here. Is this a familiar? What is Kanna? What is first? What is Kanna? What is Kanna?
I never heard of that.
It's a plant, and it's not even a Schedule 1. It's not illegal.
How did you ingest it? Was it smoking?
It was in a little. It was like some crystals in a little capsule. I've never been able to find them since then. But since then, I went to Combo next, which is the Brazilian green tree frog, which they have to burn into your skin. And then after that, I went to Aya, sassafras, and my medicine is psilocybin.
What is it?
My psilocybin shrooms. And for me to even get anywhere, it's about 9 grams. And I still haven't gotten to my access dose. So says Kalinda E.
Hey, Dr. Carl, yes. I see you and I raised you. I brought reinforcements today. You weren't ready for this. And to be honest, neither was I. All right, 866-801-8255. Anybody else have a tree family? First, I'm hearing of it. I'm here for it. I'm open, not going with Tanya anywhere to sample any trees on the planet, but I respect all that she's saying. Dr. Carl Hart, what do you know of this?
Well, what Tanya is saying is that all of our medicines, all of the medicines that we take in society are based on plants. And we have, in many cases, just extracted the most active ingredient and just synthesized it in the lab. But all of this is based on animals. We have evolved, these plants have evolved these different types of chemicals in part to increase their longevity. So like when some animal may come along and eat a plant, and then that animal may get sick or altered to the point where they don't like it, that decreases the likelihood that they will eat that plant. Or some plants evolve chemistry such that the animal likes to eat it, and then that increases the likelihood that the animal will eat the fruits of that plant or tree, and then pass it on, and that increases the development or spread of those chemicals. So this is a natural sort of evolutionary sort of thing.
And Dr. Ii said that, you know, mycelium, which is with mushrooms, he believed, he passed on last March, and he believed that it was actually an alien technology because it precedes all of the plants, the insects on the planet, and it forms a network across the entire planet. I mean, I wrote a novel one night on shrooms. It just was coming. I couldn't even take it fast enough. It was just coming.
You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be extraterrestrial in order to be all throughout the planet, because plants are, and that's also just part of the natural sort of evolutionary course of our planet. That's a fact.
But they did just find them on Mars. They found mushrooms on Mars, they think.
I'm sorry, I haven't heard that. So that's new knowledge.
Oh, I'm gonna find it.
Please, drop the link because I need to So you run into something, you're like, I didn't expect this, but I'm here for it. 866-801-8255. Dr. Carl Hart is here at Dr. Carl Hart, H-A-R-T. Tanya, the mushrooms, in what form are you taking this? And how do you know how to dose? I mean, we were talking with Dr. Carl Hart last time he was here about dosing, and like, how do you know that you need this much? And then,
well, first of all, you want to get them. I've never done it as a social thing. I always do it as a spiritual thing. The first time I did it, people told me that they do like 3 people split an eighth. So the first time, me and 2 people, we did an eighth each. Nothing happened, some giggles. Thereafter, I did it alone. I found someone who does it in a very sacred medicine, and she gave me a bag and she said, just eat them. So I ate like 9 grams. You get the chills, you get nauseous, you meet your shadow. For me, I met my shadow. It's like, to me, it's like instant psychotherapy. Work that you do with people in the world, you get to do it right there. If you just say, I'm going in, we're gonna look at my self-loathing tonight, we're gonna look at my evil, I'm going in, I'm all of that, we're gonna die, I'm going in. And then on the other side is just, it's not really describable for me. The last time I really did anything was I went into the jungle and did Aya for 10 days in the jungle, and I made a pact with a plant called Noyorao, which is like my master teacher. And to be in communion with Noyorao, I gave up pork. I gave up ever doing marijuana, or I'll never get to do bufo because of the pact I made with Noyorao.
what's bufo? Bufo?
Bufotenin.
What is it, Carl? Dr. Hart?
Bufotenin, the substance that's contained in the frog.
Okay, all right. I'm writing this stuff down.
But she also pointed out Aya, which is ayahuasca. The main component of that is DMT. All of the things that Karen is saying is kind of highlighting this sort of renaissance among, I'm sorry, Tanya, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
All the things that Tanya said.
We are one. We are all
right on,
right on. Part of the same. Yeah.
By the way, that's the name of my psychedelic chapter. We are one. So right on, Karen. Thank you for plugging the book. It's all the things that Tanya is saying is part of this sort of psychedelic renaissance in terms of use, and people are discovering that these plants, these chemicals can alter your psychological being, feelings, makeup, such that you are more generous, more magnanimous, more open, more forgiving, able to look at yourself, able to check out your sort of footprint in the world to make sure that it is not negatively impacting other people, and you reevaluate. But all of this sort of stuff is not new, but we're acting as if it's new in large part because middle class or middle to upper class white folks have discovered this, and they are writing about this, and they are our journalists. They are really the folks who are the opinion makers in our societies. They've discovered this now. But when people are doing heroin, when people are doing cocaine, when people are doing MDMA, a number of these drugs, they are seeking exactly the same thing, but the language changes. And we don't call them, as Tanya was saying, her medicine, the spiritual versus social, this sort of thing. We don't do that. We just call those like drugs, our bad drugs. But trust me, this is what my book was all about. When you do heroin, people do heroin, they can achieve the same things. But the difference is that when you don't have the sort of self-awareness, the education and the ability to introspect, and you take any of these drugs, you're not reaching those higher planes. But if you do have the education, the ability to introspect, to really interrogate yourself, you can achieve all of this with heroin, with cocaine. That's what the point of the book is. So it's not so much in the chemical, although some chemicals produce their unique effects. Now that's true. But the point is that we can achieve all of these, and our language changes depending upon who is using the substance. And that's the concern that I have, having studied drugs for 30 years.
And that's the only place where I can get in alignment with you, because I feel like all of the introspection that you're talking about, people can achieve without use of drugs or outside
Absolutely.
substances. And I believe, if our ancestors are, I'm sure, yes, they use plants and medicine and teas, and, that is part of our culture. But I think many of us, I'm not talking about present company, but many of us use it to escape the self, to escape the things that we need to work on, not lean into the things we need to fix in ourselves. So, that to me is problematic.
Let me speak to some of that, because, when I was thinking about doing it, I kept looking for books by us and I couldn't find them. And then I happened to, meet Baba Kalindi E. And so the tradition of mushrooms, particularly on the African continent, is ancient. And we don't talk about it and we don't write about it because it's that sacred. That plant that purple plant in the Wakanda world, that's a real plant that is only given to an elder, because sometimes when they take it, they don't come back, but they can come back. And so all of the martial arts have an entheogen associated with it. The whole thing of the martial arts was that you take this medicine so you can go to another realm and practice your skills. Nobody was trying to kill anybody. You and Dr. Carr talked about that. So there are substances that martial arts adepts take so that they can go into another realm and practice their skills before they come back here. So there's a tradition in our culture, but we don't write or talk about it because it is that sacred.
Yeah, but please understand too, Tanya, and the current day Africa, they are either as prohibitive or restrictive with drugs and plants as we are in this country. We have exported our awful drug policy to the continent, and they have these increasing numbers of their people in jail. I was in Ghana not long ago. I mean, the folks are in those jails. It looks like the slave ship. I mean, that's how awful it is because of drugs. In large part, they're arresting folks because of drugs, and that's been exported by us. So it's in Africa, they need a lot of re-education about these things as well.
I mean, they're also wearing Catholic school uniforms, and they have a white Santa Claus and Jesus on the billboard. So, a lot of the indoctrination, and I'm not, again, I'm not demonizing anyone, because, the colonization was powerful, and it still is. And I think about, the awesome amount of work we have to do, which is why I want to start from a baseline, of like where we can all kind of, commune around this notion of who we are, and what we all can do for ourselves to be healthy as possible. And I don't know, Dr. Carl, taking drugs, is that healthy to you, or is it medicine for you? And have you, because last time you were here, you were saying during COVID, you were having a hard time finding the natural form of heroin that you would take, because you don't just take heroin. He's not just out there on the street looking for that smack. I think that's what they call it, but you and you don't sniff it. You're like very particular about how you use it. Have you been able to use it during this period?
No, because we have this pandemic, but, heroin isn't the only substance I use. If I had to have, say, like a favorite substance, it would be something like MDMA. Now, MDMA is methylene dioxymethamphetamine. The kids call it Molly. Back in the day, we used to call it ecstasy. But it's when we think about, is it medicine? Is it not? Is it recreational? The thing that we have to understand is that alcohol was medicine for a very long time. And so the distinction between medicine and just drugs, that's an arbitrary distinction. Please understand that. Unless somebody is like, you have cancer and you're taking this substance to get rid of the cancer. But oftentimes when we're taking something for pain, for example, an opioid for pain, that just basically alters your awareness of pain. It's not treating the problem that's related to the pain. So that's like, is that medicine or is that just making you feel good? I don't really care. When I'm at a dentist, I just want to have an opioid or something on board that I'm not going to feel the pain. And so this sort of medicine or not is a very Western puritanical sort of thing. And when we think about MDMA today, Molly or ecstasy, there was a study about 2 weeks ago that just came out that showed that MDMA is effective at treating soldiers who have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, as a result of being in war, which is a horrible thing. What this thing that we're doing, we're having this ongoing war, and then we're having people come back in our society and they're expected to act as if they didn't see all of this trauma. MDMA has been shown in multiple studies to treat that kind of trauma. So we can think about the trauma that we experience in our communities when you see a loved one killed by the police and you can't do anything. I mean, a few weeks ago, we heard that the Attorney General in North Carolina, where Andrew Brown was killed, is not going to prosecute those officers that assassinated that brother. I mean, the people in that community, imagine the trauma that you have when you can't do anything, when you see your loved ones, your sons, your daughters being murdered by the police. Trauma. MDMA certainly can help, as these studies show. Is that for pleasure or is that medicine? I don't really care. I care about dealing with those people's trauma, however we can do it.
Is sarsaparilla MDMA?
I'm sorry?
Is sarsaparilla MDMA? Is that an MDMA substance in that?
No, I'm not aware of it. I'm sorry.
As I said, I was very anti this, and then, you know, I felt so profoundly altered by it that I took my children to, they had sarsaparilla and they have done social drugs, and they told me that sarsaparilla was like MDMA. And, you know, it's supposed to make you feel good, but 2 of my children just purged all night, and the curanderas, they said, this is not even a purgative, but clearly your children have some releasing they need to do. And with one of my children, I saw just a crack in this calcification around his heart. I saw a crack in the spirit of that. And it's just been profound.
One of the things I just like to say and be clear with the audience, we want to make sure people understand precisely what they're taking and the doses that they're taking. It's really important. The fact that we as a country have prohibited these substances so long, what that has done in effect is that it's pushed it underground. And when things are underground, sometimes you have some less than scrupulous players who are operating underground. And so I want to make sure that people understand it's really important to know what's in your substance, to know the dose, and also to be in the most comfortable setting, because the environment and the setting could actually play a huge role in provoking extreme anxiety and paranoia, all of these things. And so I don't want anybody to kind of take these things lightly. Of course, I believe that substances certainly can be helpful for people, but it's really, it requires work, just like anything that's worth having. It requires some work to know something about these substances.
And
You
so
talked about
Tanya,
Portugal.
hold on. So Tanya doing it as a spiritual exercise is favorable to someone just doing it at a club.
Well, Tanya is a grown woman. She's responsible. She knows that she's responsible for her children and she's going to protect her children at all costs, those kind of things. So I have confidence in her. And I'm just reiterating the fact that we want to make sure that people know exactly what's in their substance and the dose. But she is a responsible person. And I am all about allowing responsible adults be responsible adults, because then we all are better when they have the freedom to do that sort of thing.
And you talked about Portugal having, no illegal drugs, so that there's a festival or something where they have testing, where people can come in and bring their drugs and test them and test the purity, so that everyone's there knows exactly what they're getting. Here, you don't even know that it's the drug that killed you. You don't know what they cut it with. You're in danger from just buying things on a black market.
Yeah, so in Portugal, they decriminalize drugs. That means that they're not going to be arresting anybody for using drugs or possessing drugs. And they have the drug checking, the drug purity checking, as you alluded to. We have the resources and we have the technology in this country to do this, but we've chosen not to do it. And yet we also like to talk about how many people are dying from the opioid crises, when in fact, a large proportion of those people are dying because they get tainted drugs or drugs that are adulterated with some toxin that causes people to overdose. And we could easily solve that problem. But the point is that the American public hasn't demanded it, and the politicians have not advocated for this sort of thing. They are fully aware of this.
And
Yeah,
let
but
me just say this, Irving Dardick, because there's a book called Making the Waves. I don't think Irving Dardick is alive anymore, but Irving Dardick was a medical doctor. They took away his license. There's a book about him called Making the Waves. In Italy, they teach. And he said that when you see people taking drugs, it's because they're trying to recreate chemicals that their bodies would normally make. They're trying to recreate these waves. That's what he called it. And he developed an entire exercise protocol based on your biorhythms, the time of the day, the time of the year, where you do these sort of extreme forms of exercise to get your body to create the same waves that people who get addicted to drugs seem to be seeking. Yes, there are ways to do this without a substance.
Yeah, but be careful when people start telling you that somebody is using a drug for some reason and it applies to everybody. You should have some red flags going up. That's not how it works. Why do you have sex? People engage in sex for a variety of reasons. And there is no one shoe that fits all. The same is true with drug use. So when those people start doing that kind of thing, putting everything in one basket, red flag, red flag. It doesn't work that way. And when they start talking about this sort of nebulous biological language, red flag, it doesn't work that way. We know some things about the brain, about biochemistry, but we still have a lot to learn if we want to talk about that sort of thing. This is what I've done for like 30 years. My studies have been the biochemistry, neuropsychopharmacology. That's my expertise. And I am not comfortable in public telling people about which neurochemicals they should manipulate for this effect, because I will be telling them some BS, and I don't want to do that. And this is somebody who's published 100 papers in the scientific literature.
This is Dr. Carl Hart. The book is called Drug Use for Grownups. He's a professor at Columbia University. He's a psychologist. He teaches in psychiatry. 866-801-8255. Do you condone your children using the drugs that you use, Dr. Hart?
Well, so I'm not a snitch, so I can't put my children on blast on national radio. But the point is, my children know a lot about drug use. They have been coming with me into the lab since they were able to walk, watching me do my work. And part of my work is giving people drugs as part of my studies. And so they know a lot about drugs. The thing that I emphasize with my children is that they must be responsible people in this world. And part of their responsibility is giving back to society, contributing to the society that has given so much to us, contributing to the people who have given so much to us. And so that's the main thing that I emphasize. Now, I don't really care what they do, as long as they achieve those goals and as long as they are handling their responsibility. They have no problems from their father. They have whatever their father has, is theirs as long as they achieve those goals. And they have been able to. They are college educated, they are doing well, they are lovely humans.